Welcome to Your Hobby Connection. We're going to start a video series on the Cumbres Toltec, a day in the life of a locomotive. So we're going to start off with 484 as she fuels up, drops her ashes, and waters her tanks, and gets ready for the day to leave out of Chama, New Mexico, headed up to Cumbres Pass. We first see 484 heading out to the ash pit from the shops where it spent the entire night being looked after by an overnight hostler. A hostler's job is to keep the fire alive and the engine warm throughout the night. You don't want the locomotive too hot where it's popping off and using up a lot of fuel and water, but you don't want it to where the fire dies out and you have a hard time relighting it and getting the water boiling again. So it's a very fine balance of adding just enough coal to keep the fire at a simmer, but ready to go about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning so they can bring it up to speed and to steam. The pressure is supposed to be around 100, 125 psi from what I understand throughout the night. Typically, a few hours before the locomotive is supposed to be ready to go onto the train, they'll bring the fire up and they'll bring the pressure to around 180 to 190 psi, which is around where they're popping off at. So as you'll notice, they're raking out the sulfur and they're pulling all the ashes through the firebox onto the ash pan, which they shake the ash pan down onto the ash pit below. This ash pit will actually get cleaned out with a front end loader that'll come in there, scoop the ashes and cinders and sulfur, and then dump it into a pile nearby. Pay attention to what the fireman's grabbing right here. It's a fire rake, and what he'll do is he'll grab that little rake and he'll shove it inside the firebox and start raking around the coals inside, trying to break up and remove all the little pieces and reshuffle the fire to get all the soot and the debris out of the fire, getting it ready for the day. When you get ready to leave in the morning, you want a nice, even fire. This way, you know what you're working with. What I was understanding during my class and training of the Rio Grande's firing plan, you kind of wanted a horseshoe. You wanted it higher in the back and kind of banked on the left and right and just evenly covered in the middle of the fire. Now that they've shaken the fire out and gotten it ready for the day, they're taking it on up to the next location, which is the water tower. If you look to the right, you'll see the old coal tipple that they used to use back in the Rio Grandes to top off the tenders with coal. The water tower they are using is one of the original Denver and Rio Grande watering towers that was built in the 1880s and has been maintained by the Cumbres Toltec Scenic Railroad ever since they acquired it. Now, the Cumbres Toltec is owned by the states of Colorado and New Mexico, and it's a historic railroad. Where we're at right now is Chama, New Mexico, and as you head on out towards Cumbres Pass, you will climb 4% on average all the way 2,500 feet in the next 14 miles. What you're seeing right here is what would be known as floating the tender. That's where you overfill the tender and have the excess water wash off all the debris and cinders on the deck of the tender. What you just saw was what was known as a blowdown. It wasn't a very long one, but they were just blowing the sediment out of the mud ring, which is right below the firebox and the inside of the boiler. It's one of those things that if you don't clean it out and get it cleared up, it can cause issues, and it could cause a locomotive to have major malfunctions. If you look over to the right, you'll see the front end loader next to a pile of coal. Well, that's how they load the locomotive's tender with coal. They don't actually use the coal tipple that it passes right by, probably because it's kind of dangerous, and it's a big pain in the neck for what operations they perform. So we're going to see them back the locomotive up, and they're going to do a couple of switch maneuvers to get it next to the loading platform where they'll begin to load coal into the tender, and we'll get to catch a couple of shots of that here in a minute. As you've seen, they do a lot of hand signals and communication through whistles. So the guy on the ground will give the signal to come backwards, and you'll hear 3 short blasts, the toot toot toot, to go backwards, or the hand signal to go ahead, and you hear the 2 short toot toots. So they do a lot of hand signals and communication with whistles. So it's pretty cool to see them doing that. A lot of railroads have abandoned the hand and whistle signals and just gone for radio control only. So it's really cool that they have that ability and that uniqueness to them on these railroads. Now begins the not-so-fun task of topping off the tender with coal. These tenders hold anywhere between 7 to 10 tons worth of coal, and with those extra little rails there, it'll hold a little bit extra, which is part of the Rio Grande's plan, to hold more coal so they'd have to have less stops and be able to do more tonnage without being worried about running out of fuel on the heavy grades. Now, for those of you who have seen locomotives with coal firing that have a damaged roof on the cab, well, now you can understand how they probably got damaged. If you have a very inexperienced or bad operator on the front end loaders, they have been known, and can be known, to hit the top of the cab roofs. So if you see a cab roof on a steam locomotive that's been damaged, well, now you probably understand how the damage happened, because what else is usually going to hit the locomotive that high up? Also of note is how good of an operator they are to figure out where they need to have the coal in their bucket in order to fill up the tender without overfilling the other portion. So as you'll notice, this coal load right here, he's going to dump a majority of it on our right, his left, in the camera view. So he filled up one side of the bucket heavily, so this way when he dumped it, he would fill up the front half and not the back half of the tender. So he's what you would call a good operator. Now that the locomotive is fueled up and ready to roll, they're going to take it and back it onto the train, which is sitting just outside of frame on the other side of the coaling tower. Once the train's hooked up, they'll do an air brake test, do the final boarding calls, and they'll be heading on out of town towards Cumbres Pass. So I don't get to catch them hooking up and doing the air brake test, because I make a hasty retreat to the other side of the bridge where they'll be coming out of Chama and leaving town. While I couldn't catch the locomotive doing the hookup and testing, I was able to grab a couple of photos of the train as it was hooked onto the cars already as I was making my way up and out of the yard and getting ready to head towards the bridge on the other side of the river, which it crosses over as it leaves the yard. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. One of the things that I love to do is show the background, to show the things that others may not see or know that go on behind the scenes. Like when I showed the Durango and Silverton turning a big 16-car train on the Y. That was a pretty impressive sight. It's one of the things that I haven't seen on the videos before, so I thought you guys would enjoy something like this where we see how a different railroad operates narrow gauge locomotives just like the Durango and Silverton and what they do for their morning preparations before they leave their rail yard. If you guys like this video, I hope you'll enjoy the next video series that I'm working on, which is going to follow the Lionel 2024 catalog with a twist. So make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you get notified about the next videos that we're coming up with, and share it with your friends and family. The goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of February. So we only have a few weeks to hit that goal. So let's make it happen, guys. Thank you.